human challenges is the hardest part of scaling a company. You can reach a product market fit, having a product that works perfectly. If you're really bad at the human side of things, you will likely fail. If you have a very enthusiastic, very motivated person in a team, it tends to increase productivity of the whole team around it by 20%. If you have a very bored, very unmotivated person in your team, it tends to decrease by 30%, more than what a very motivated person would bring to the team. When you're a fintech, usually you rely on somebody else's license. When you're a bank tech, there's no security.
If you want to be in fintech, be in tech, not fin. If you're the fin guy, you're gonna be regulated.
What is key in life, if you want to succeed, is to take a very small thing you want to solve, but doing it the best you can, like putting as much energy as you can. The key trait that you must develop in order to have a successful scaling is really to be.
All right, so we get started again today. We're going to talk with another entrepreneur. His name is Maxence. Hi, Maxence.
Hello, Antoine.
Maxence Cornet. So, how to describe you? Entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur for sure. Tech guy, I would say also. I'm an entrepreneur, so I've built and started a lot of business. But in most of them, when I was a co-founder, I was the CTO. So only more the tech side of things. But it's not the only role I had, right? I've been CEO, I've been CTO, so I know a lot of I can have like a lot of different positions in the company. I would say like what I prefer is like operations, tech, product. Weirdly enough, compliance is something that I like a bit. Entrepreneur definitely.
So entrepreneur, CTO, co-founder, currently working with Rauva.
Yep.
Which is something we can describe as a game and market changing fintech company. We're going to talk about that. So digital banking dedicated to entrepreneurs, which is what we like, right? Engineer by profile, holding a master's degrees in information systems and business intelligence. And he founded and co-founded multiple businesses in the past, always related to software, finance, banking, but also smart contracts, crypto, Web3. The interesting thing when I did my own bit of research in the first place was the ambition that comes out of what you can read on you, basically online. And I found 3 points that I really liked. One was this is a fintech that actually acquired a bank.
Yes.
Usually it's the other way around, so we're going to talk about that. 2, there is an ambition to become a Portuguese unicorn because we're in Europe, we're in Lisbon, and that's a good place to talk to entrepreneurs and nomads and people who want to change stuff. And last thing I found was that behind the spirit with Rauva, there is the idea of transitioning from fintech to bank tech. And that's something I found pretty interesting. So if you're happy with that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's what we talk about. First thing first, so we like to talk about scaling up in the scale-up show. The question is, how do you work on scaling up a business? What would be your first tips and your first suggestions?
Well,
let's take the case of Rauva. The idea is to make entrepreneurship available and accessible to everyone.
Absolutely.
Right? So where do you start when you're an entrepreneur? So
Rauva started to solve one pain point that was it's a pain point in some European countries, but it's absolutely true in Portugal, and especially in Portugal. It's how banking for SMEs and entrepreneurs is complex, extremely complex, extremely bureaucratic. It's for most of them, if you want to open a bank account, you need to go to the branch. You have few fully digital options. So we really focused at the beginning on solving that pain point, right? Just making banking payments easier for the entrepreneurs. You can scale in different way, right? You can scale in a fully vertical way, meaning you just try to have as many customers as possible on that vertical banking, or you can scale in a more horizontal way. You diversify your service that you do for your customer base. And this is part of how we do. I mean, we did both actually, but we also decided to put a lot of focus around this horizontal scaling. So we started with banking only, then we moved on to adding invoicing, expense management. We now handle accounting for our customers. So we're trying to offer a full set of service that covers every need of the entrepreneur, from like the company creation to accounting. Right?
So instead of having just a model where you scale by going from production to delivery, you're doing production, delivery, but also delivery of more things.
Exactly.
And the more you go,
Absolutely.
the more you provide.
This is exactly what to do. So you start with like one team dedicated to banking. You still go and scale vertically by trying to just attract more customers, getting your product better, reaching a market product fit on that specific vertical. And then you scale horizontally at the same time by adding new squads, working on new products that are very interlinked to your core product. So this is what I've been done at Rauva for the past months. And yeah, it's interesting because most companies usually decide to scale in one direction, right? Either more service or double down on their main vertical. But trying to do both at the same time is quite challenging. You need a lot of human resources. You need a lot of team members. But it's been extremely interesting.
So that's an interesting point, because the message we try to push with the Scale Up show is to say scaling up is not just for big companies or not just for startups that raise money and go to the scale up stage. It's also something you can do when you're basically building your own company, and basically you're starting to think in terms of not only starting but also growing it and getting it somewhere in the future, right? You've been through both, because you've started a few companies, you've founded a few companies. Now you're at the level where you're scaling a bank.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what's the advice you would give to someone who's actually starting with their own companies, and they're thinking about, okay, I want to grow. It's not a startup. It's not necessarily about getting investors, because it's a difficult exercise to do. What can I do tomorrow if I want to get my business to the next level?
So it's extremely dependent on the business, but most of the time, and the type of business that I really like, because it's more a how to sell your service than a type of business, but it now became a type of business, is what we call productized service, right? Mm-hmm. I think, and what I've seen, one of the most efficient way to scale your business is actually to try to package whatever you're selling that's providing value to your customers in a very streamlined product that you can repeat over and over easily. Because if you start to move from like a service manual-based provided, I don't know, what would be the example?
Haircut.
Sorry? Haircut, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is going to be hard to package, but let's say advice for IT business, or marketing counsel for companies. If you're able to package this in an offer that you can sell over and over with not that many changes to the product, but that's actually like a good value added for the company buying it, you can then move to even more automation, meaning that you can scale vertically with no more people. And yeah, this is usually one of the good leverage you can have is by packaging your offer.
In terms of building the team that comes with that, what are the key challenges?
Well, some people know it, some people repeat it all the time, but human challenges is the hardest part of scaling a company, to me. Because even if you can reach a product market fit, I mean, a product that works perfectly, if you're really bad at the human side of things, you will likely fail. So you need to have what's extremely important is have common vision that you can share with the team. You need to have like common rules. You need to have try to vehicle common values, similar training to everybody. It's a lot of work. Yeah, it's the toughest and the largest amount of work you will have is to scaling a company is really the human side of it.
I'm smiling when you're saying that because I agree. But also because I've spoken to a few finance people in the past and quite a few entrepreneurs as well as part of my job. And something I keep hearing is just stop bothering us with, what's your vision and all that because it doesn't pay the bills. And I have people who say visions are not that important, values are not that important, blah, blah, blah.
No, it's super interesting what you're saying, but Maxence, like 6 years ago, building a company where I had 25 employees, I would have said, yeah, common values, all of this is bullshit. It's just, you're just wasting time. You could build more product, more features. Now Maxence with like a team which is 3 times the same size, you have 60-70%. If you don't have common values, if you don't have common rules, if you don't work on building the core value and the core vision of the company, you're going nowhere. People are going to go in different directions within the company. You'll have infighting, you'll have teams that don't understand each other. It's you have to discover it, but values is definitively not bullshit. It's hard to quantify, but it's extremely important.
Especially in an environment where it's very multicultural, right? Because here in Lisbon, it's Lisbon, so it's Portugal. Absolutely. So you have Portuguese stuff, but it's also a European capital. So you have French people, you have British people, you have American people, you have Canadian people who are living around here, Asian people as well. People are coming from different places, different continents. They have different ways to think, different ways to communicate. So if you don't have the direction, don't have the values, don't have the common language, it's complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. In Lisbon, it's even more true than anywhere else where I work in Europe. You here our team is comprised of, I can't tell you, likely 18, 19 nationalities. So yeah, I fully agree. You need, it's even more true, you need even more that common vision, else everything is going to fall apart.
So
in terms of,
we had a chat last week around beer and pizza. Pizza is one of the common languages.
Or beer is one of the common languages.
No, but jokes aside, it's so I was living in Asia before, right, for quite a long time, and back there it's pretty difficult because people say, your clients say, we're here to work, we're not here to make friends, and so in their Asian mindset, work is work, and organizing a pizza, beer kind of event in the evening to get all the team together and having way too many people in the same place doesn't make part of the mindset.
I haven't worked much in Asia. A few months back in Taiwan, but do they go to the office every single day?
Yeah.
I think this is the difference. When you have a team, younger, right? In their 20s, most of them, or early 30s, and they work from home most of the week. They only have 1 day at the office per week. They're very happy to meet everybody from time to time, and I think this is why those type of events work well, and basically everybody comes each time because they're just happy to see each other. It might be a bit different when you go and have to go every single day to the office, because I get it's a rule, right? They're not going every day at the office because they want to. Likely, if they were given the choice, they would go a few days at the office, few days from home. I think in this type of setup, people are actually more willing to have events together. And it's very good. It builds a team together. It brings everybody together. It's good to know people you work with as well.
So actually, that's a good point, because these days, the question of, post-COVID, whatever, people say you have to come back to work, and people say, no, it's okay, you can stay away. Does it mean that for you, the point of you can work from home, is it a way to improve the scaling situation, because it means you can lower the pressure on the real estate and the fixed costs and all that? Or is it something that's actually slowing down people, and that's why you have to compensate it with things that are going to get people together every once in a while?
Post-COVID, I think something is a given, is there's no going back, right? I don't think it means that remote is going to stay the standard, but I think hybrid will stay the standard. Actually, it's the best of both worlds to me. Having maybe a bit more freedom. Also, when the office, you know it as much as I do, but if the office is completely packed, your productivity, especially for the type of work like technical, data, just drop a cliff. So having both those, the good point of being at the office, like informal conversation, you discover stuff on the product because you talk with support, you talk with sales. This brings a lot of value, even though your own focus during that day is lower than what you would do at home, like with no noise, no coworkers. But a bit of both, I think, brings the best you can have. You have full concentration at home, and you learn a ton of things in an informal way at the office.
So is that the way you do it? Do you spend some of your time, I mean, you personally, you spend some time working from home, sometimes from the office, a bit of time in Paris, a bit of time in Lisbon, and you travel around?
So most of my time is in Lisbon, most of my time at the office, but I spend some time not at the office when I'm in Lisbon or working from home in Paris. So I try to balance a bit of all. I would still say that I spend more than 60% of my time at the office, but it's still I rather have it a bit balanced than 100%. Yeah.
And when we had that pizza and beer drink last week, you said something that I quite like because it resonates a lot with me. It's Post-its and playing around with the teams. You take that big white wall that you have and you start making people brainstorm around an idea. And in a couple of hours, the wall is full of colorful Post-its and keywords everywhere. That speaks to me. Why do you like it? What does it change? How does it help the company move on?
I think the key purpose of this type of meeting is breaking the status quo of decision already made in the company, right? We know we're going to release that product. We know the timeline is this. Everybody's going that direction. Nobody's questioning anything because the plan is set. And then you have this type of meeting and you just turn around one of your products. You're like, why do we track users, or why do we ask users for their email and not their phone? Why our entry point is here? Why? And then you go into that very energetic type of reunion that where everybody write on the whiteboard and you're just pouring energy from everywhere. And I think the good part of it is you're just breaking a status quo. You still have your plan, right? Because it's good to have a long-term plan. You know where you're going, but you might add some new items to your roadmap on how to get there. Or you might just turn around the way of how to get there. So do you have the same outcome in the end, the one that is your target, but the way to reach is completely turned around.
Because in the end, that kind of exercise is like, it's a curve. So in the end, you get people happy. They're going to be here and, you get the mood going. And then you put the problem on the table. And then you get them upset. And they're like, shit, we've got that problem. We need to solve it. And as soon as the problem is identified on top of the curve, there is the magic question, which is, how might we? And you keep saying might. And how might we means that you're empowering the team and you give them a way to find their own solution, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you also discover things, Usually, the most vocal person on Slack doesn't win, but his idea is more spread. I think those type of meetings are a bit more fair in terms of idea, because it's easier for anybody to participate and get their idea on the table. So it's also a way to get some new ideas from someone that wouldn't have shared it on a Slack or by email, because it just doesn't feel like it or doesn't feel comfy doing it. But orally within a room, super easy for him to tell it.
That's true. It's something that we see quite a lot, where these meetings where you allow people to just push a paper, a Post-it, put it on the wall, means that they're going to have a voice. And usually you reveal some characters there. Yeah,
you discover good ideas, you discover characters. It's always interesting. Sometimes it doesn't feel that productive, or sometimes it's extremely productive. It might not be as much as you thought during duration, but there's always an outcome to it. It always brings something on the table, this type of reflections around the whiteboard with some people. If the mood is there, it always brings something to the table. Yeah.
So mood, Dynamics, let's talk about mindset. Second part of the discussion. But what's the kind of mindset that you look for when you hire people in a team? What's the kind of mindset that allows the company to grow and scale?
Okay. This is, I think everybody has his own way to hire, right? I hire a lot. I've been hiring over the past years. Yeah, I've been hiring 60, 70%, even a bit more. A lot of developers, a lot of data person, head of, but also just line developers. So I think the key stuff for me depends also on the amount of experience and the role, right? If I'm looking for a developer, the key thing for me is the motivation and the pace that this person like. Of course, I always do an exercise when I hire a developer or even a data profile. So tech challenge, I need to verify that the skills of a person are at least decent, but I would pick 1,000 times a guy with just decent skill, but extremely fast paced and extremely motivated over a more senior with a better quality of code, but just a bit
Not
bored or, not as optimist, not as motivated. It's always the way I pick my teammates. Just any role, even just people that are extremely motivated, people that want to super eager to learn and to be in a fast-paced environment. I've read somewhere something recently. I don't know the veracity of it, but it was interesting. The idea is that if you have a very enthusiastic, very motivated person in a team, it tends to increase productivity of the whole team around it by 20%. If you have a very bored, very unmotivated person in your team, it tends to decrease by 30%, more than what a very motivated person would bring to the team. So I just try to have this virtuous cycle of motivated person everywhere.
And actually, if you think about it, I mean, we always hear that someone who's grumpy about service or whatever is going to say it to everyone, or someone who's happy is not going to talk about it. So it's kind of a parallel, but it makes sense to say that someone who's going to have a negative mood or a grumpy mood is just going to
has just more impact than the positive. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, in hiring, this is a key thing. I really try to have this. I try to have also, I don't know if I told you, but I use MBTI test in all the hiring process. And I try to have a very varied type of MBTI within the same group. For some type of profile, I'm looking for specific MBTI, especially in data. You want a data profile, you want them rational, right? You wouldn't have a irrational data profile. It's a bit antinomic. But for the rest of the people, I try to mix and match MBTI so you're sure that they will be a bit complementary.
Yeah, so there is the MBTI, that's a well-known one. The one we use is the DISC. It's not similar, it's complementary, but it's also about figuring out how people behave, what would be their natural reaction in this or that kind of situation, and I agree that it helps a lot.
It helps a lot. It helps a lot. You don't manage people with different MBTIs the same way.
Exactly.
And it's really key to understand this, because giving some type of project, like a very dense, big project that has not been structured, to somebody with the wrong MBTI for that situation would be catastrophic. Nothing would be achieved. On the opposite, giving really repetitive or really too specific tasks with no liberty to like commander type of MBTI, the guy will get extremely bored. So you really need to know the MBTI of your teammates in order to manage them well, I think.
So basically, if we try to put that in plain English, that means some people will have a natural behavior to try and decide and control. Some people will naturally follow whatever has been decided and controlled. Some people will try to push ideas and influence other people. Some people are just going to try and be at the back and support whatever is being decided, but their natural behavior is going to be, okay, we go that way and I'm going to help. So in the end, when your own natural behavior is going to be to decide. If you just try to tell people what to do, you break the mood.
You will break the mood, or they will feel
Governed.
They will feel a bit micromanaged, I think. I think this is the feeling they would have, in this type of situation. So you really want to be a bit careful in the way you manage at each MBTI, but there is no good answer, right? Like sometimes you hear that the best MBTI is what is called commander, but now try to have a project where you only hire commander.
Yeah, that's
it's a literal war. The guy will like kill each other so you really need a complementarity in your team.
And usually what happens is people hire people who look like them. So if you are a commander, you end up having a team of commander, and then that's the beginning of the war.
Yeah, no, that's true.
How do you manage that in a context where, so we were talking about going from fintech, so finance and technology, to bank tech, so bank and technology. But banks are known for being heavy structures, heavy machines that are difficult, and that's why fintech appeared as, let's say, another market or another discipline, right? Because the fintechs would do things that the banks would not do. So usually the logic is we're going to go from a banking mindset heavy to something more agile, more fluid, right? Why do you go back from fintech to bank tech, and how do you handle that process from mindset perspective?
So there's a few items there.
Points.
You know, the mind, what you just described about how heavy a bank can be, I think it just comes from the fact that we had incumbents bank that were very slow to change, some had like malpractice, we know all about this. But it doesn't mean automatically that a bank has to be like this type of very heavy industry, that mammoth with a lot of inertia, right? If you look at New Bank in Brazil, it's a bank. I think this is like the epitome of bank tech. New Bank is a bank. It's absolutely massive. It has been started as a startup. Now it's a fully fledged bank. And they are able to roll product like crypto integration. You know, anything you can think of, they can roll it, and extremely fast, right? So I don't think bank or bank tech should be a synonym of heaviness, or I think it's just a cliche that comes from this incumbents bank that we all know.
So technically, what would be the difference between fintech and bank tech?
The level of regulation, for sure.
Yeah.
If you work in fintech in general, even in insurtech, you are already in a heavily regulated world, especially in Europe. So the difference would be when you're a fintech, usually you rely on somebody else's license. If you're EMI, you have your own license, but you still rely on a bank to be the depository of the funds of your customer, right? When you're a bank tech, there's no security fillet anymore. You have to rely only on yourself, right? So it's definitely harder in terms of regulation. You definitely have to be more careful about the system you put in place, and you have to comply 100% with the regulation in place. So it's not necessarily different in the product, even though you can do much more things as a bank than you can do as a fintech. But it's really essentially about the level of compliance and system and report that you have to deal with. It's definitely harder, but you can still be very similar company. Like Revolut as a fintech and Revolut as a bank tech, the product didn't evolve that much, right? Now that they are bank tech, they're able to have localized IBAN, but else it doesn't change that much the type of company you are.
It's funny when it's interesting that you say that, because a friend of mine back in Hong Kong, who was a product supervisor, something like that, in a big fintech there, was always teaching one of my classes at university, and he was saying, if you want to be in fintech, be in tech, not fin. As in, if you're the fin guy, you're gonna be regulated and you're gonna be hit hard by the regulator. But if you're doing the tech that's behind the fin, then you can let them manage the fin and you can just provide the software, basically.
Well, this is why you have a very large array of tech companies that provide services to fintech, but they are not regulated because they don't need to be regulated.
Yeah.
It's all the software for fintech. And usually this type of company works very well. Yeah, it's a great business area to be in. Yeah.
From a personal mindset perspective, tell me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, you started as a freelancer.
Absolutely.
Freelancer is a typical mindset because usually the freelancer is thinking in terms of, this is me, this is my job, I'm good at doing that. Don't tell me how I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And then the freelancer goes into, okay, now maybe I need to think a bit different. I need to scale a bit, become a bit bigger. So they turn into managers and they have to think strategy and reporting and kind of KPIs. So their mindset has to grow until they become the entrepreneur who starts hiring and moving things a bit differently and coordinating like the maestro at the opera or whatever. How did you do that? How did you go from being the freelancer who works for someone to being the co-founder or the CEO who has to orchestrate?
Entrepreneur is a great stepping stone to become an entrepreneur. It's much easier to go from like employee to a freelancer to entrepreneur than trying to do employee to entrepreneur directly. Freelancer, you're basically, and I like the type of company you can find in France that most entrepreneurs use. It's called micro enterprise, right? This is exactly what a freelancer is. You are still selling a product like any other company. The only difference is that the product that you sell most of the time is your own time, your own expertise. But you are learning as you do it a lot of skills that are the exact same you need as an entrepreneur. Selling, prospecting, finding customers, all the admin stuff around it also. Just invoicing, how you need to manage your funds and so on. So I think it's quite a logical flow to go from freelancer to entrepreneur. But also it's a safest, it sounds weird to use the word safe in the entrepreneurship word, but it's a safer way to start as a freelancer and then move to trying to have employees and scale your business, which you can already have your product if it's your own time. You just need to teach other people the same skill and sell it.
So they can reproduce.
Absolutely. But yeah, to me, it's a safer route. So you already have learned most of the skills you need to become an entrepreneur as a freelancer.
Did you get any situation, any issue, any opportunity, something negative, something constructive, something positive that made you click and say, okay, now I have to change. I have to change something because right now it's not going to be scalable. It's not going to be viable more than that. I need to get to my next step.
I think the click is, let's say you have a few years of experience. You start with a base price. Next year you increase that price, but you discover, okay, I can do this every year. I'm going to earn more and more money, but you understand that there is selling
time.
That you can, time is your selling. You can't, even though you sell at a very high price your time, there's a selling. And likely, if you're not like a genius, if you're just someone that's good in his job, whatever, developer or marketing, you will be able to sell for a good price, but soon enough you realize, okay,
there's
the max I will be able to reach in my life is this point, which is nice. I will be able to afford a lot of things, but I will definitely not be like rich or have whatever I want to buy if you are very ambitious. So the click is definitely this. And then you realize, if you read books and there's this famous, bit cliche, but Warren Buffett sentence that if you want to get rich, you need to find something that makes money when you sleep, right? Because you don't sell your time anymore. You decorrelated revenue and time. And this is what made me click. I needed to find a way to make money while I was sleeping, or at least money that I was not acquiring with selling my own time.
That's the definition that we put in this scale-up show.
Okay.
That's the definition of, okay, it's a discussion we've had with the team when we were saying, okay, how do we define scaling? And some people in the team have been working with startups and all that, and to them, scaling means, how do you go from Apple version 1 to Apple version now, as in opening more stores and blah, 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 blah. So it sounds like huge scale kind of thing, and it's not available to everyone. But that version of scaling means, how do I get to a job? That's exactly the point. Not to a job. How do I get to a business that's going to work for me without me?
Yeah,
without
absolutely.
raising money necessarily, right?
And this is exactly turning from freelancer to business is just providing the same service, but you've automated, or you find a way, can be automation or can be employees, of selling your skill while you're not providing it, while you can be sleeping or whatever. And this is when you move the needle to entrepreneur.
So this
is when you scale.
Yes, and that's back to what you were saying earlier when you were talking about productization.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
in the end you have something that's time that you turn into a product that someone else can sell.
Absolutely. This is why I really like that route, the freelancer that managed to create that productized service, because it's really the easiest way to scale. But scaling is not easy, don't get me wrong, but this is the easiest way to do it, I think.
And you were just talking about, when you read books and stuff like that. Are there any books or are there any podcasts or sources of inspiration that worked for you and that actually got you some interesting ideas that you managed to put into practice?
Well, definitively Charlie Munger, who unfortunately died this year, but anything by Charlie Munger is I don't know how to say better than just mind-blowing. Charlie Munger will really literally rip your mind. It's a Poor Charlie's Almanac. When you read this, it's very blunt, very direct sentence, not like over-engineer or trying to be a bit smarter than you type of thing. It's just blunt, wise knowledge to your face, and it's crazy how insightful it can be. Definitely, the so many misconceptions I had were fixed by just reading.
Do you have an example?
Okay, yeah, I have a very good example. One of my favorite from Charlie Munger. When you want to start a startup, usually, like the rookie mistake, you're young, you want to create like a completely crazy scale, crazy scope type of product. And some people keep this for a very long time. And they fail because the scope of their idea is way too big and there's no way they're going to achieve this if they don't know how to break it down to smaller pieces. But Charlie Munger said that what is key in life, if you want to succeed, is to take a very small subject, a very small thing you want to solve, but doing it the best you can, like putting as much energy as you can into a very small thing. It applies a lot to micro software, type of like Invoice to Go. Invoice to Go, it's was sold for 600 million, I think, recently, and they were just doing like invoicing mobile on the go, but extremely well. And this idea of taking a small thing that can be even smaller than invoicing, you can do something like, I don't know, I don't have an idea, but extremely small. If you put a lot of energy and try to make it as good as you can, you will be extremely successful.
So if we go back to what we started with, there is the idea of you can scale a business by doing more services that can solve more problems for one client, or you can go from creation to delivery and doing it extremely well, and the more you go, the better you do it. And that's pretty much what you're saying in that case.
But this is Rauva as a type of business. We can be more ambitious in what we're building than just taking a very simple idea and making it very well, even though it's still the case. It's a simple idea of just making entrepreneurship easier for anyone, because we will handle all the boring and complex stuff around this, so you can just focus on the business. But you can also go to like more ambitious, harder project when you're a veteran of the space, right? You should try something extremely easy as your first business. Easy is a bit subjective, but something simpler as a first business, and you can get more ambitious as you grow. I'm not saying that this is the most ambitious business ever. I'm not trying to send a rocket to the moon, but if you compare it to my earlier ventures, it's definitively more ambitious.
But actually, when you're saying that, there is, sorry, I'm coming back to my thing, but there is a huge mindset thing here. Because in the end, when you're saying, okay, we start from a very simple idea, which is we're going to make entrepreneurship easier. And you end up saying, hey, why don't we buy a bank? You know, it just sounds like, okay, there is a big leap in there. So how do you, some people would say, oh, we can't do that. Some people say, we're never going to make it. Some people would say, they're not going to take us seriously. You know, all these limiting beliefs that people have that just prevent them from doing something just because they think it's not possible. They're not going to try. How do you get to, why don't we buy a bank?
That's a tough question, but the truth lies in literally what you said, is the scope of the possible for everyone, including me. We tend to underestimate by a wide margin the scope of what's actually possible. In business, or in life in general, but this is even more true in business, almost everybody has this tendency to say, no, there's no way this is possible. No, I can't try this acquisition. I can't try to release this product. And so they won't even try it. But truth is,
they should.
They should, yeah. They should. You might fail. You will likely fail if it's extremely ambitious. But most of the time, there's still a slim chance that it goes through, right? I'm trying to think about all the craziest entrepreneur move I've heard. I'm sure those guys were like, they tried for sure. All of them tried. This is the common point, but all of them were like, okay, there's no way this is going to work out, right? But
okay, so if we summarize all that, it means in the end, scaling is a question of trying. It's a question of changing the mindset, changing the process, reviewing the way people think, and doing it on a regular basis to make sure that we keep going. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it's a fair summary. I would add maybe, in order to scale, it's incredible how rigor is important in setting up the rules, setting up the process. I think the key trait that you must develop in order to have a successful scaling is really to be extremely rigorous in your organization. At least this is what works for me. Okay, well, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing all these insights. And you guys have to keep following those videos and clicking subscribe. That helps. If you like it, subscribe. If you don't like it, you click twice on it. And see you on the next one. Cheers.